Vale, muy bien, muy bien. Y buenos días. Buenos días, ¿cómo están ustedes? ¿Están bien? ¿Están bien?
Sí.
Más o menos, sí. Más o
Sí.
menos, yeah. Yeah. If you want to say so, it's más o menos usually. Some books will tell you it's así, but así is for different stuff, right? Yeah, más o menos is really as a more of a response for how you do. Okay. You don't want to tell somebody, ooh, fatal, I'm horrible, unless they're a really close friend, right? But muy bien, vamos a hablar vamos a practicar muchísimo. We're going to practice a whole lot. Vamos a practicar muchísimo con los números. We're going to practice a lot with the numbers. I'm going to open with something really, really simple, though, before we start into our numbers. And that something simple is going to be the R, because I know a lot of people send me feedbacks. It probably drives you crazy. If you find an R difficult, doesn't it drive you crazy when other people are like, it just comes like that, and it's like, oh, how do they do that? But it like anybody else, depending on your experiences and or just whatever, for some people it is easier. Interestingly enough, little kids, little toddlers born in Spanish-speaking countries have to learn to roll their R's. Yeah, they do. So, it's normal. It's really normal. So we're going to focus on two things that will, two pronunciation things that we will wrap into the vocabulary and grammar type practice. And those two pronunciation issues are going to be, we're going to do a little bit with the R, a little bit today, just a tiny bit, like 2 minutes worth. And we're going to focus on those combinations that are tricky, which are the IE and the EI. And we'll come back to that in a little bit once we get to our numbers. But we're going to start, vamos a empezar con la R, con la R o la R. We're going to start with that first. And I'm going to put up my little whiteboard. I wonder if I can just do my cut and paste. Oh, it won't let me cut and paste, sadly. Okay. Vamos a escribir. I'm going to write these in. That little video that showed you that if we use an F, the F sound to lead off a word, that is what gets us to push the air through your lips and makes it easier to go from the F airflow into the R. So I'm going to put up some words which start with an F. And these are, by the way, super, super common words that people would hear a lot. So I'm not trying to pick things that are odd or unusual, but kind of common words. So in other words, words that you would hear. If somebody would talk to you for 15 minutes, you might typically hear one of these words. So we're going to use all of these to practice our R a little bit. So I want you to repeat with me and focus after each word on the F sound, the F with the air coming through, and trying to let that flap your tongue a little bit, okay? Bueno, repitan, por favor. Frío.
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 Frío. Bien. Frente.
Frente.
Okay, and you'll notice these are not the strong R's. We're practicing these because getting that single flap is the most common that we have to get over that hump. The third word there is, bueno, repitan, frito.
Frito.
Frito is fried. Fresco.
Fresco.
Fresco is cool. Not cool as in neat or nifty or, wow, that's great. Not that kind of cool, but temperature cool, fresco. Okay, the next is a word that means phrase or sentence, frase.
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 Frase. Bien. Okay. The next is a cognate, so it means what it looks like. Fragrante.
Fragante.
Flagrante.
Fragrante. Sí. And the next one is also a cognate. It means what it looks like. Frágil.
Fragile.
Frágil. Frágil. And it's got the ch. Frágil. Frágil. See? The next means to scrub. And in slang, it is a verb that means to annoy, bug, pester, but it means to scrub, like your pots and pans, or scrub the floor. Fregar.
Fregar.
Fregar. Okay. The next is the word for French. Francés.
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 Francés. And the next is the word for border, not the border of a shirt, the border is between countries. Frontera.
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 Frontera, muy bien, frontera. Okay, vale, magnifico. So those F words actually help us to get the airflow through and work that a little bit. Okay, the next thing, and I'll bring up the screen again in a minute. And this is what I noticed when I heard a lot of people do the number practice. And I checked last night. So if you were an early bird and did it this morning, I didn't see it yet, but I will get to you. When we give you the vowels at the beginning of pronunciation practice, that is really, really key. Because, you know, if you flub up an R and you can't roll the R or R, people can get over that hump, native speakers, when they listen to you. But it's harder for them to understand you if you don't get those vowels 100% right, okay? When I said at the beginning of the session that the vowels are like 60 or 70% of the game with pronunciation, that is absolutely true. Because unlike English, where the letter A can have lots of sounds, like I think they've analyzed there are like 19 sounds for the English letter A. That is intimidating if you are learning English. It's always A. It's always E for that letter E. It's always E for that letter E. But when we start combining those vowels, putting them right next to each other, it causes us problems. Why? Because we have to slide from the one vowel to the next. And secondly, because whether you're aware of it or not, your English brain takes over. And all the English combinations of EI or RIE, it is almost uncontrollable. It starts to take over and you start to project how you think it should sound, but it is not how it sounds. So we're going to focus on when these two vowels go together, and we're going to work that with these numbers. And by the way, these kinds of difficulties are totally normal, muy normal. Estos problemas son muy normales. These problems are really normal. People will have these issues with these combinations. So that letter is always e, and this letter always sounds like e. But when we start combining them, we get these combinations, and these happen a lot with these numbers. So this is why this problem comes up. So when I've got an EI, it'll be A. Okay, repitan, A.
A.
If you are old enough to remember Happy Days, the Fonz, A, yeah, it's like that, but not as drawn out as A, but it's A. So we pronounce both the E and the I, A, but they slide together. So, en otras palabras, in other words, this number is going to sound like if you talk about a vein that carries blood in your body. Veinte. And a lot of people, whether you're conscious of it or not, start to say that word veinte, but it is not veinte. Okay, so here's why I'm going to show you that that is important to get those vowel sounds in sequence correct. Look at how close those two words are to each other in spelling, except some of the order of some of those letters is reversed and we've got a totally different letter at the end. But the word veinte es 20. Veinte, 20. But look at this, or listen to this next word, viento. Viento means wind. And, you know, if you're talking about it being windy, hace viento. Viento sounds a lot like if you mispronounce veinte. It's not viente. It's not viente because we have viento, which means wind. So when I tell you the vowels are 60 to 70%, you got it down pat. Getting those vowels really clear can sometimes make the difference from one word to a totally different word that means something else. So if you really want to be understood speaking, these are things that are worth working on and worth spending some time on. Veinte. So what I'm going to suggest is we're going to do the numbers just for meaning, a lot of practice today, and to get your pronunciation, more experience. But on your own, don't be afraid to just take that chart page I had sent out last week and pronounce all the 20 words in order to practice every single time. Veinte, veinte, veinte. I would even say it can be a good idea for some people. Some people find it helpful to take their phone and record themselves and then listen to themselves when they're done with those little short numbers, because you can hear, am I saying those words with the sounds in the right order? Okay, so veinte, veinte, veinte. So it'll be 21, 22, 23, 24, right? When we've got these 20 numbers, it becomes, when I add something, when it becomes 21, 22, 23, what happens is this little letter E disappears and we plug in instead the sound E, which means and. Normally the word and is spelled with a Y, but the Y and that letter I are going to make the same sound phonetically. So when we smash it all together to make the 21, 22, 23, it becomes, instead of 20, it becomes 20, 20. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. There we go. Okay. And then similarly with the next 10, jump up, we'll have treinta. So think of a train, treinta, treinta, treinta. So veinte and treinta will be in the same ballpark with that a combination. 20, 30. I want you to try those two numbers by tens with me. 20,
20,
20,
30.
30.
Okay. And the next tens up, we'll start to use different vowels. Okay. But I do want you to notice, let's take the next 10 up, which is 40. Oh, we've got another two vowel combination. And again, we're going to pronounce both of those vowels, but we're going to slide them together. 40, 40, 40. And then the next one, we don't have a double vowel problem. Oh, yes, we do. Because we still have a UE. Wait. So it's 50, 50. 50. 50. Okay, and the next one after that is gonna be sesenta. Sesenta, 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 sesenta es 60, 60. And so here's what causes not so much a pronunciation issue, but a listening comprehension issue. The difference between 60 and 70 is only that difference between the letter S and the letter T. So we have sesenta, 60, but setenta for 70. Setenta.
70.
70, 70. Muy bien. A ver. Bueno, 70. Next, we've got another one. This usually doesn't cause people problems. 80.
80.
80. And then we have 90.
90.
90. So there are our numbers going by tens up. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Okay. And we can see that tricycles, a three-wheeled vehicle, has that Latin thing, you know, all these little things kind of, we have words that come into English that help us remember, right? Quartets, 40, right? Well, I don't think we've got a cognate with 50. 60 looks like seis, except it's missing that letter I that would be here, seis, right? 60. And 70 sounds a lot like siete, 7, but it's missing that I letter again, siete. So it goes just to plain old 70, right? 80 sounds a lot like ocho, and 90 sounds a lot like nueve, except, oh, let's go to that word, because this is another issue I found. And again, it is a common issue. And again, it goes back to that thing of that issue of saying our vowels absolutely purely. I've got two words, but they're completely different words that mean totally unrelated things. So cuidado, careful. This number 9, nueve, it's got a UE, so we have to pronounce both the U and the E, ue, ue, ue. It'll sound almost W-like, almost English W-like. Nueve, nueve, nueve ends in E. Nueve is 9, nueve, but it is really easy for people to say an O at the end instead of the E of nueve. Nueve, 9, nuevo, new. So if you're reciting numbers, you don't want to say nuevo, because nuevo means new, as in brand new, something you just got out of the box, something you just purchased, something you've never owned before, but just recently got. So what I want to show you is working those vowels is super, super important, because changing a vowel somewhere often, not always, but often will get you to a different word that might have a completely unrelated meaning. And then we might confuse the people we're speaking to. Okay, so that is what we want to strive for with our pronunciation. Bien? Vale? So these are things to be aware of and things to think about when we practice our numbers, which we're going to go into right now. A menos que, unless you have some sort of a question for me before we.
Marilyn, I do.
Okay, dime.
You had mentioned with me number 10.
Oh, yes, yes, I should have put that in. Gracias. Gracias, gracias, sí, okay. And diez is another one of those words. Again, it's in this same family. It's in the same exact family of vowel combinations. Yeah, and I skipped it. Shame on me. Okay, so let's look at this because it's another one that causes us issues. And it's another, again, it's not the EI of veinte, not the EI of treinta, it's the IE, IE. Like viento, wind, diez. Oh, you know what? There is a family surname, Diaz. There's a word for days, meaning more than one day, like 7 days in a week. Diaz, but they're not those. Oh, and look how close they are in spelling to this number 10. So let's try diez.
Diez.
Diez. Okay, vamos. Let's look at when we squash them all together. Oh, but actually the first numbers are not squash them all together, right? Once is not squashed together. It's just a different word. It's not the 10 and 6 that we have later on. We've got once, doce, trece. Wow, those look a lot like the uno, dos, tres, but they have an e sound at the end of the number. Catorce, there's our 14. Quince, there's our 15, which, wow, how did they get from 5, cinco, to not using cinco for the word 15, quince? That quince is a Latin thing, but now we're going to take a look at when we do the 10 and 6, 10 and 7, 10 and 8, 10 and 9. And just like we had 21, we're going to squash these together. This happens with the teens that are higher and with the 20s, but it will not happen with the 30s, 40s, 50s. Okay, so let's look at 16. Diez, we change the Z to a C. You know what? That C and that Z, they sound the same, the S sound. And here's our letter and, there are E sound, which is signaling and. Dieciséis. Here's 16, and this is complicated. Look at all these vowel combinations. We have IE at the beginning and A at the end. Es complicado, it is complicated. Okay. Repitan, por favor. 16. And it's important when you're learning these, don't be afraid to slow it down and break it down by syllable, just like you do when you're teaching somebody English. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious is a lot easier as supercalifragilistic. Okay. 16. So break it down to diez,
Yes.
y
Y.
seis.
Seis.
And then you slowly say it again and make it maybe roll into each other a little bit more. 16.
16.
And when somebody says it to you as they give you a price, it will sound this fast, 16. That doesn't mean you have to say it that fast, but we have to train our ears to listen for it that fast. 16. Let's look at the next number up. And again, it's based on that word diez, 10, diez. And it's based on 10 and, diez. And now we just tag on the word for 7, 17. 17. Okay. And now we're going to take the 10 and 8, the 18 number. And we start again with diez, and we tag on the and, diez, 18. Perfecto. And the last nasty word we have with diez. 10, we add on our word and, diez. And now, oh, look at all these vowels, you guys. No wonder it's hard. Of course it's hard. Claro que es difícil. Of course it's hard. 19. 19. And you never want to say it as 19. 19 is 10 and new. 10 and new. And somebody will look at you like, do you mean 19? Yeah. 19. 19. 19. Okay. So you'll notice in those little videos I gave you that our 20 numbers slide together. They do the what I call the trash compactor thing. And the teens from 16 through 19 do that trash compactor thing. But when, it's important that you know that once we get to the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 combinations, they will not do the trash compactor thing. They will, all those higher numbers, just go back to using that word E, which means and, okay? And they'll separate them out, okay? So it'll be 31, 35, 38. Okay, it'll be like that. They'll be separate words. But now again, you'll notice this when we do a little dictado, a dictation at the end for listening comprehension. When people speak, even though they're saying them as three separate words, 38, it'll slide more together in a quicker fashion like this, 38. So people will really sound like they're saying it fast because they are. So it's the listening challenge that we go through with that. Okay. So the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s will separate them out. You should never focus on writing every single thing out. We write numbers in digital format, and they do too. So your need to actually spell out these numbers, how useful is it? It's maybe useful initially as you're learning it to get that vowel order correct. But beyond that, writing a lot of numbers in word form is not that helpful. I would say use the chart to read from it. That will be more helpful. Okay, so let's go to something else. We're going to look at some lower numbers first, and then we're going to look at some higher numbers, and we're going to look at some adds. Pero vamos a empezar. We're going to begin. Vamos a empezar aquí. ¿Cuántos? How many? ¿Cuántos hay? How many are there? ¿Cuántos? How many? Quantity. ¿Cuántos? ¿Cuántos hay? ¿Cuántos bombones hay? ¿Cuántos bombones hay? How many chocolate goodies are there? ¿Cuántos hay? And when we answer, we'll answer either just with the number, or we'll say, hay, there are, with the number. Okay? ¿Quién sabe? Who knows? ¿Cuántos bombones hay en la foto?
16.
16. Hay 10. Perfecto. There are. Hay 16 bombones. Somebody may answer you with hay 16 bombones, or they just may say hay 16. There are 16. Or they may just say 16, right? Just like we do in English. They may roll it all into a complete sentence. They may give just the verb hay with the number. They may just give you the number. Okay, so be prepared, right? ¿Cuántas? It's a feminine how many word, because I'm talking about galletas, a feminine thing. ¿Cuántas galletas hay? How many cookies are there? ¿Cuántas galletas hay?
Can say
20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, sí, 20,
no, it's mine.
20,
Mine is blocked. I'm sorry, I had pictures blocking.
20, okay,
Yes.
20. hay 20. There are 20. Or hay 20 galletas. There are 20 cookies. Or 20. They may respond in any of those ways. Pelotas, pelotas. Ooh, here's the size of the hail that was falling in Cave Creek. Ping pong size ball hail. ¿Cuántas pelotas? Pelotas son balls. Okay, little balls we use for games. Hay pelota. ¿Cuántas? ¿Cuántas? Feminine word because pelotas is feminine. ¿Cuántas pelotas? How many balls? ¿Cuántas pelotas hay? ¿Cuántas pelotas hay?
18.
18, perfecto. Perfecto, 18. And now I'm hearing your 10 numbers more clearly. 18, 18. Hay 18 pelotas, or hay 18, there are 18, or just 18, 18. Okay, unos ejemplos más. ¿Cuántos? It's a masculine word because I'm saying how many masculine things. Ornamentos. ¿Cuántos ornamentos hay? ¿Cuántos ornamentos hay?
11.
11, perfecto. 11. Hay 11 ornamentos. There are 11 ornaments. Or hay 11. There are 11. Or 11, just the number. Okay. Naranjas. Naranjas, oranges. ¿Cuántas? A feminine word with a feminine word, naranjas. ¿Cuántas naranjas hay? ¿Cuántas naranjas hay?
15.
15. ¿Hay 15? Hay 15 naranjas. There are 15 oranges. Hay 15 naranjas. Hay 15. There are 15. 15. 15. Keen. 15. Think of the word keen in English. 15. 15. 15. Bien. And all these little dotted things are actually balloons, globos. So those kind of don't show up too well. I got to do something with my background to make that show up better. Bueno, globos. Globos son balloons. Globos son balloons. It could be a globe too, but in this case, it means a balloon. ¿Cuántos? A masculine word with the masculine word globos. ¿Cuántos globos hay? ¿Cuántos globos hay?
18 globos. Hay.
Yes. Bien. Hay 18 globos. Muy bien. Muy bien. Hay 18. There are 18. Hay 18. Hay 18 globos or just 18. 18. Bien. Okay. Vale. We're going to move to something that es un poquito más difícil. It's just a teeny tiny bit harder. Pero no es imposible, not so difficult. Let me take this off though, because I've got to make sure I pick the right screen before I flash up a gazillion things and confuse you all. Okay. And I'm going to share a totally different screen now. I'm going to ask us in a slightly different way. Although I'm still going to use that interrogative word, that question word, cuánto. And I'm going to show you what cuánto looks like. It's a question word, or the fancy thing is interrogative. Interrogative, if you're interrogated, heaven forbid, it means you're being questioned. Cuánto means how much, okay? And you're going to hear this as a full question. ¿Cuánto cuesta? How much?
Marilyn, can it be feminine too?
Yes, it can. Buena pregunta. What a good question. So let's look at how that morphs. Okay, ¿cuánto is how much? How much? But if I tag on other things, it becomes how many. So, ¿cuántos? Or the feminine form, ¿cuántas? Perdón. means how many. Oh, yeah. Cuantos, when I make it plural instead of cuanto. And cuantas, when I make it plural, means how many. How many of masculine things or how many of feminine things. But if I just want to ask how much, because I want a price. So I want to know how much I have to pay. If I want to know how many things I get in a package, how many things do I get in this package? Then I want the word cuantos, right? How many? But if I want to know the cost, you know, of what I've got to pay for my bill, it's cuánto, how much, right? Cuánto cuesta. And cuánto is just always cuánto. Well, it could be cuánta in limited sentences, but you don't need to know in a limited sense. We're going to use the cuánto. Cuánto, cuánto cuesta. And cuesta means costs. Oh, but you know what? If I am looking like at a whole bunch of things, like say I am buying pants, because pants have 2 legs, or let's say I'm buying, you know, a bunch of apples and I want a bunch of apples, right? Then you might hear it as cuánto cuestan. Cuánto cuestan. And that is not how much does it cost, but how much do they cost? You know, you're never going to buy 1 blueberry. You might buy 1 apple, but you're never going to buy 1 blueberry or 1 grape. That's not going to happen, right? Cuánto cuestan? How much do they cost? Because you're buying a whole bunch of grapes. So you're going to hear the questions when we look at the next set of photos as cuánto cuesta? How much does it cost? Or cuánto cuestan? How much do they cost? Okay. Vale. Vamos a ver. We're going to take a look at some slightly bigger numbers. And we're going to not worry. Should I make these a little bit bigger? We want to not worry about the cents part of it. So don't worry about the, you know, 99 cents or 25 cents, you know, unless you want to be really, really fancy. But okay, vamos a ver. La chaqueta de niño, the little boy jacket, la chaqueta de niño. ¿Cuánto cuesta? How much does it cost? ¿Cuánto cuesta la chaqueta de niño? ¿Cuánto cuesta?
Veinte y cuatro.
24. Cuesta, it costs. Cuesta 24. Cuesta 24. If I want to say 99 cents, with, I know, it sounds weird, con 99, but cuesta 24. Cuesta 24. Okay, vale. La chaqueta de chicas aquí. La chaqueta azul, this blue jacket, la chaqueta azul. La chaqueta, ¿cuánto cuesta? ¿Cuánto cuesta?
29.
29. Make sure you get your nueve at the end. Nueve.
Con.
29. Con 99. Con, you remember the con, muy bien. Cuesta, it costs. Cuesta 29 con 99. Okay. Pantalones. It's a plural word. So, ¿cuánto cuestan? ¿Cuánto cuestan los pantalones? ¿Cuánto cuestan los pantalones? ¿Cuánto cuestan?
40.
41.
41
41, perfecto.
con 25. I forgot
Con
to say.
25, magnífico. Excelente. Cuestan 41. And because she got fancy, con 25. Muy bien, fantástico. Aquí, pantalones cortos, shorts. Pantalones cortos. Pantalones cortos. These are shorts. I know that's kind of hard to see from the photo. De la foto. 33. ¿Cuánto cuestan? How much do they cost? ¿Cuánto cuestan?
33.
33. Cuestan 33. Excelente. Cuestan 33. 33 con, 33 con
75.
75. Muy bien, muy bien, muy bien. A ver. Zapatos, zapatos. Shoes, zapatos. Shoes. Nike Tangen. Tangen? Ok, Nike Tangen. Ok, aquí. ¿Cuánto cuestan los zapatos aquí? ¿Cuánto cuestan? 48. ¿Cómo se dice? How do you say that?
48.
48.
48.
48. Cuestan, they cost. Cuestan 48 con 75, pero cuestan 48. Bien, 48. Ok. ¿Cuánto cuestan estos zapatos? ¿Cuánto cuestan estos zapatos? 52.
52.
52. 52. Cuestan, they cost, cuestan 52 con 50. Ok. Calcetines, socks. ¿Cuánto cuestan? It's our keen number.
15.
15. Cuestan 15. Cuestan $15. Bien, bien.
Marilyn, what are you saying for cuesta?
Cuestan. They
Cuestan.
cost. Because you buy 2 socks together.
And how is that spelled?
Cuestan? It
Yeah.
has an N at the end. Ok. Buena pregunta, Roger. Un momentito. Voy a mostrarte. I'm going to show you. Aquí tienes. Here you have it. Cuestan.
Okay.
When you hear a an N at the end of a verb, it means more than one person is what it's referring to. Or in this case, because they're not people, socks and shoes or pants, more than one thing, right? Cuestan. With a verb, when you hear a nut at the end, it's going to mean more than one. And you're going to see that. You know what? Magically, Roger, what a great question. Because you're going to see this happen later on when we switch gears from numbers to verbs very, very shortly. Anytime you hear a n at the end of a verb, it means they are doing it. Or, you know, what we're talking about is more than one thing in the verb sense. Yeah. Okay. A ver. Bueno, vamos a ver. Unos ejemplos más. Aquí voy a engrandecer. I'm going to make this bigger. Tenemos una chaqueta de hombre. Man's jacket. Una chaqueta de hombre. ¿Cuánto cuesta? ¿Cuánto cuesta la chaqueta? ¿Cuánto cuesta la chaqueta?
Marilyn, we can't see this.
Oh, perdón. Gracias. What would I do without you folks to help me? Aquí. ¿Cuánto cuesta la chaqueta? ¿Cuánto cuesta la chaqueta aquí de hombre?
48.
48, perfecto. Cuesta
But then how do you say it costs? Is it E?
It costs is one word, cuesta.
Okay.
It sounds like the word quest with an A at the end of it. Cuesta.
All right. So then it's cuesta, cuatro,
Cuesta.
y ocho.
Cuesta 48. Cuesta
Yeah.
48. Cuesta 48. Bien, perfecto. Cuesta 48. ¿Ok? Bien. ¿Cuánto ¿Cuánto cuestan? Pantalones es plural. ¿Cuánto cuestan los pantalones?
$29.
29, perfecto.
29. Yeah, 29.
29, sí.
Yeah.
29. Cuestan 29. 29. 20. 20. 20. 29. 29. Cuestan $29. Ah, bueno, fantástico. ¿Cuánto cuestan estos pantalones? These pants. ¿Cuánto cuestan?
24.
24, perfecto, me gusta, me gusta. Ah, ¿cuánto cuestan los zapatos? Los zapatos aquí, los zapatos, 59. ¿Cuánto cuestan los zapatos?
59.
59, 59, 59, excelente, sí. ¿Cuánto cuestan estos zapatos? ¿Cuánto cuestan?
56.
6, sí. Cuestan 56. Cuestan 56. So you see how those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all those words, we keep recycling them because we're adding them on to the end of the 50s numbers, right? The 20s numbers, the 30s numbers. Okay, we're going to take one more vein number. Estos zapatos aquí, these way at the end. Estos zapatos. ¿Cuánto cuestan?
29.
29. Cuestan 29. Cuestan 29. Perfecto. Okay. Muy bien. What I'm going to ask you to do, I still have my share screen on. Ooh, you remember this. You remember this page, see? Okay. So take that again. This week, what I will want you to do is to take this and the second page. So it's going to be this one, and let's see if I can get it right, and this one. So it's going to do everything under 100, right? And I want you to look only at the bottom, exercise 2, nothing else. On each one, the bottom, number 2, it says, escribe el resultado. Escribe el resultado means write the result. Oh, write the answer to the math problem. Don't give me the whole math problem. I don't want 20 plus 30. I want the answer. 50. So you're going to have to do your little math thing first. I, who am very math challenged and have a hard time doing anything in my head with numbers, I am very math deficient. So I have to usually write this out myself. I don't know about you guys are probably smarter than I am, but you know, I have to write it out. So I will give you a little space to do the recording on this, like I did last week. And I want you to say just the answer to the math problem, which means you're going to have to calculate that out first, right? So what I'm going to want there, so everybody start with 50, so that, you know, you get that first one right. And then you're going to give me 47. You're going to give me 84. You're going to give me 65. You're going to give me 55. Wow, I'm doing it in my head. It's almost impossible. You're going to give me 92. I am that bad with numbers. 92, and I married a math major. Oh my God, and I'm terrible with numbers. 92. Why did he marry me? And you're gonna, and 55 and 76. Okay, you're gonna give me the answers, right? You're gonna give me the answers to that, and you're gonna give me the answers to this, so that you're practicing just the number. Okay, so this will be your follow-up to give you speaking practice, so I can listen to you. Okay, and I'll give you a space to record that on. ¿Entienden? Make sense?
Sí.
Perfecto, okay, vale. next week, we will come back. We'll do more of these pricing things. And we will start to tackle some hundreds numbers, but we're not going to do like outlandish stuff. The reason it's important to know some hundreds is that, of course, when you look at different monetary units, be they pesos or whatever country you're at, it's very common to get into the hundreds. So do you need to know how to talk about billions and millions? Unless you're selling real estate, probably not. But what, as a tourist, will you need to be able to say? Well, there'll be those things that go into the hundreds. So I'm going to give you the short answer. I'm going to give you a video that does the hundreds again. But I'm going to give you the down and dirty, simple answer to this. The word, the word for 100, got a fat finger going on here, is cien. And these are going to combine those IEs and EIs again. Yeah, they're going to. So cien, 100. So we're going to give the short intro to the hundreds for next week. Cien. Cien is 100, but only when 100 when it's 100. Anything that's higher than 100 goes to a longer form. Okay. So just like we had diez, this is like the same sound in diez, the same vowel sound. Cien. Repitan, por favor. Cien.
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 Okay, but anything higher than 100 is going to go to a longer form. And the longer form just adds on the sound to. That's all. Ciento. Ciento. So 101 is 101. 102 is 102. And I'll give you a video that will show you in that sequence. Okay. 102, 103, 104, etc. So anything higher than 100 goes into the longer form. Ciento. Our word century comes from that. Yeah, ciento. Okay, and when we go into, each time we step up into a higher hundred, it's going to add on the number of hundreds. So we'll have dos for 200. We'll have dos. We'll have 200s. They make the word hundred plural. 200s. Doscientos. Doscientos.
Doscientos.
Yeah, doscientos. And we'll say 300s. We're going to notice a pattern here. 300. 300. We take the word tres, 3, and add it on to hundreds, plural. 300. 300. Wow, what a nice pattern. And so, as you can guess, we take the word cuatro and we add on the word hundreds. 400. 400. 400. Bien? And now, oh, sadly, we're going to break that nice pattern that we learned. You would think it should be cinco with cientos, but it's not. Here's the one that's hard. Here's what every 15-year-old kid has told me. It's the hard one. Yeah, because it's true. It breaks the pattern. So, it uses not cinco, but the quin of quinientos. It uses the quin from quin, or I'm sorry, it uses the quin from quince. I'm sorry, the quin from quince. Instead of taking cinco from 5, like you think it ought to, it takes the word quin from quince, and it goes quinientos. There's the hard one. And why is that hard? Because it breaks the pattern. Quinientos. Quinientos. Okay, we'll practice that more next week. Now we're going to go back to the pattern. 600. 600. 600s. Now we almost go back to the pattern. Instead of taking Siete, 7, siete. We take siete, but we drop the E sound. Setecientos, 700. And next, we're going to really follow the pattern. 800, okay? And next, we're almost going to follow the pattern. Instead of nueve, 9, we're going to look at the 90, 90. 900. So that one's not too, that's not as bad a break as 500. That's a bad break. But moving from, instead of 900, we take the 9 like we have with 90, 90, and we get 900. And just so you know, because thousands are sometimes a helpful number to know, 1,000 is 1000. And if you work with the centigrade system or the decimal, you know which one I'm talking about, centigrade and milliliters and all of that. You've heard these words before, right? Mil is 1,000. And then it becomes really easy. 2,000, 2,000, 3,000, 3,000. Ooh, 10,000, 10,000. If you're a tourist, are you likely to need 10,000? Well, you might, depending on the monetary unit, but going too much over this will have limited use for a tourist. Good to know, but not absolutely essential, but these will be important. So this is just a preview of what you'll be looking at when you listen to some videos on higher numbers, okay? We're still going to practice the lower numbers first because those always form the basis for what we need. Okay. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Any kind of question about those before we move on? Because we're going to switch gears and go into grammar land soon. ¿Sí o no? No? No, okay. Vale. Okay. What we're going to work on next is going to be grammar land. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to do a quick dictado. I'm sorry, perdón. We're going to do a quick dictado. We're going to do a quick dictation. Ooh, grab it, any old thing to write with, and grab a receipt from your last grocery. It doesn't matter. You're not turning this in. Nobody's going to look at it except for you. I'm going to take some 2-digit numbers before we go into grammar land. And I just want you to quickly write down the number you hear me say. This is the most crucial thing. When I say the number, the digit should pop into your head. So if you want to use your number page for a cheat sheet, that's fine for today. But the most essential skill you need is to listen to the number and recognize, oh, that's the digit they mean. So I want you to write these down as digits. Okay. And I'm going to say each word twice. And then at the end, I'll show you what these 10 numbers are. Okay. 42. 42. 42. Número 2, number 2. I'm going to take 93. 93. 93. Okay. Número 3, number 3. I'm going to take the number. Ooh, I'm taking one slightly. This is a hard one. 110. 110. 110. Número 4, number 4. 38. 38. 38. That's how you really hear somebody say it. 38. Okay. Número 5. Number 5. 74. 74. 74. Okay. Número 6. Número 6. Number 6 is 55. 55. 55. 55. Número 7. Number 7. I gotta make sure I got my microphone right up to my mouth here. 67. 67. 67. Número 8. Número 8. 22. 22. 22. Número 9. Número 9. We're almost at the tail end here. Número 9. 89. 89. 89. El último, the very last one. 15. 15.
Marilyn, could you repeat number 3 again?
Sí. You know what? I'm going to say each one so you can kind of do a double check. I'm going to go straight down the list. Only once each. 42. 93. 110. 38. 74. 55. 67. 22. 89. 15. I'll show you the answers. Aquí vienen. Here they come. Your goal, every time we do a dictado, is when your goal is to get 7 out of 10 right. It is a goal to work toward. You may not get 7 out of 10 right today, but it's a goal to work towards. Because the most common first hurdle travelers will have is understanding a price that somebody says to them. This is the most common thing as a survival skill that people need if they're going to travel and understand numbers, because people will say prices to you. They may have written it down on a board and point to it. Yeah, they may, but that's what they'll say to you. Okay. Vale, muy bien. Okay. We'll do another short dictation next week, la semana que viene, next week. Bueno. And I'll give you a nice video on numbers that you hear them being spoken. El verbo ser. We're going to switch gears and talk about the verb ser. Spanish is very problematic. Even for people who know French. Well, yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb because they've got extra verbs, and all these extra verbs translate to meaning is or are or am in English. So, wow, that's not very helpful. We need to learn more verbs in Spanish that mean am, is, are. We need this verb. I. It means both there is and there are, and it just says that something is out there, right? And then we need this verb ser, which means to be. And ser, to be, it talks about the essence. What's the core thing that makes that thing or that person what it is? That's what ser talks about. Talks about the essence of that thing or that person. We use ser when we want to talk about identifying who somebody is. We talk about what they do for a living. When we talk about a characteristic that is somewhat permanent in nature. Oh, we also use ser often to talk about where someone is from. That is their origin. That's why we use ser. So this to be verb ser is used for these reasons that you see on the screen, to tell what that is, who that is, to give a physical or personality description of what that person or thing is usually like in its most general sense. Okay, something that's fairly permanent, and where that person or thing is from. Origin, we use ser for all of those reasons. But you're going to find very, very soon there is this other verb. And oh, it is a not ser, it is estar. Estar. Estar is what our state, the state of things as they are. The word state comes from the same thing originally that estar comes from way back in Old Latin. Okay. Estar is used for different reasons. It is used to talk about location, where somebody is, where something is located. It's always used for location. Okay, it's also used to talk about a condition that is easily changed. So in other words, if we talk about health or feelings, then we use estar. Okay, we're going to focus today on ser.
Unknown caller.
Oh, we're going to focus today on ser and the different forms of ser. And ser uses specific verb forms. So we need to memorize, sadly, the forms of ser. We need to memorize them. So I'm going to show you something quickly here. In order to memorize what those verb forms are, we need to first know who they match up with. So I'm going to show you what we call subject pronouns. These are not yet, oh, I'm going to back up. Ser, it is a verb that identifies. It expresses permanent characteristics, talks about profession, nationality, relationships, descriptions that don't change easily. So in other words, descriptions that are somewhat permanent in nature. Okay, before I get into the forms of ser, I need to know what kind of human being matches up with the verb form. Here are what we call the subject pronouns, and they mean, you know, when we're talking about people, actual people, these are the subject pronouns. Yo is the translation for I. Tú, and oh, you had tú before. ¿Cómo estás? Corresponds with tú. Tú is the you that's the friendly you, the familiar you, the buddy you, the you that is you call them by their first name. And then we have a different category, and this is what, you know, yo is what we call first person, and it's singular because yo only talks about one person, right? So yo is first person, but singular. Tú is second person because I'm addressing you directly, but it's also singular. And then we've got the category we call third person, and it's also singular. And so these pronouns are going to refer to one person, but you're talking about the person. That's why it's third person. We're talking about somebody. And the pronouns will be él, meaning he. You're talking about one male person, or ella, she. You're talking about one female person. And oddly, usted, the formal you, even though you're addressing somebody, I know, usted is always going to fall into this category verb-wise. Usted always falls into this category with él and ella. And what that means is él is a certain kind of male person, only one. Ella is a certain kind of female person, only one. And usted is you, either sex, but it's only one you, okay? And all these words, él and ella and usted, forevermore, no matter what verb you're talking about, they use the same verb, okay? And so the reason you see these in a grid chart is that yo is always going to take a certain kind of verb in Spanish. Tú is always going to take or use a certain kind of verb. And él, ella, usted, even though they talk about three different kinds of human beings, they always use the same kind of verb forevermore, no matter what that verb is, okay? And they are all singular. They're first person singular, they're second person singular, they're third person singular. Talking about myself, talking about you, talking about another human being, but only one human being. Now we're going to look at the plural side. Here are the subject pronouns. When I am in the group, but when I have somebody with me, it becomes the word we, nosotros. Nosotros is an awfully long word to say we. Nosotros. So that you know there is a feminine version of that word, nosotras. It is not used real often because it has to be talking about a word that's all gals. I have to be a gal and I have to have other women or females with me to use that word nosotras. So you hear nosotros more because nosotros means we when it's an all male group or a mixed sex group, okay? Guys and gals together, all guys together, yeah. Okay. Vosotros is the plural of tú. It means you guys, but it's only used in Spain. So I'm not going to address vosotros a lot because only in Spain do they use that. Latin America, they don't use vosotros ever. Never, never, never. So, okay, let's take a look at, nosotros is still first person, but it's plural. Vosotros is second person, but plural, only Spain. Third person is going to use these subject pronouns. Ellos, they, all male or mixed sex group, either way. Ellas, all female group. They, but all female. And the plural you, ustedes, which I put the abbreviation in because often it's written that way. Ustedes. Ustedes is the you all. Ustedes is the you guys that is used all throughout Latin America, uniformly, always. So nosotros will always get a certain kind of verb paired up with it. Vosotros will too, but we're not going to focus on that. And ellos, ellas, or ustedes, those will always share the same kind of verb. Okay.
Marilyn, what do you use for vosotros? Do you use tú then? Like the Mexican people, do they
they'll
say
never
tú?
use it. Oh, is they want to say plural, you guys?
Yeah.
But they're with buddies, friends, they'll use ustedes.
Oh.
So Mexico, anywhere in Latin America, anywhere in the Caribbean, when they want to say, hey, you guys, you're picking up two buddies to go out for beers, it's going to be ustedes. Always.
So vosotros equals ustedes.
Vosotros equals ustedes, but it's only used in Spain.
Yeah, yeah.
And it uses a different kind of verb. So honestly, Latin Americans, they don't like having to use vosotros. Why not? Ah, shoot, you got to use a different kind of verb. And they don't memorize that. So they don't want to bother with it. They use only ustedes. That's the only word they use for you guys. Spain distinguishes between you guys, a bunch of friends, and you guys, a formal setting. Latin America does not distinguish between that. They use only ustedes to say you guys and nothing else. Okay. Does that answer your question, Roger?
Yes.
Okay, bien. We're going to take a look at the verb ser because it is very irregular. It does not follow a pattern. And you're going to notice that sometimes these subject pronouns are now in parentheses. That means that usually we don't bother to say the word. We say only the verb. In French, if you want to say I am, je suis, right? Je suis. And you have to use the je. In Spanish, you don't have to use the yo. In fact, people will not bother. They'll just say soy. Soy. We pair it up so that you know which ones match, which ones work together. But people will not bother to say the word yo. Soy, I am. It's just one word, soy. You can say yo soy. You can say that, but most people will not bother with the yo part. They'll just say soy. Soy Marilyn. I'm identifying myself. Soy Marilyn. Soy maestra. I'm a teacher. What I do. Soy morena. I am brunette. I'm describing what I look like. Soy estadounidense. I'm a US citizen, where I'm from. Okay. The form of ser that matches up with tú is eres. Eres. People will generally not bother with the word tú. They just won't bother with it. Because eres can only mean one thing. It means that person. So why bother to say tú? You can say tú eres, but most people won't say the tú part. They'll just say eres. Eres. You are. Eres. To say he is or she is or you are, they'll say es. Es. He is. Es. Okay. El or ella or usted can, that es word pairs up with lots of different kinds of human beings. So yeah, they may define, they may, in front of the word es, they may put the name of the person or that pronoun el, ella, usted. They may, if they think it's unclear from context. So, soy, I'm talking about myself. Eres, I'm talking to you. Es, I'm talking about one human being. Soy, eres, es. Soy, eres, es. Bien? These sadly have to be memorized because we really don't have great equivalents for the, well, am is are. Am doesn't sound much like to be, does it? Yeah. Okay, here's the verb for ser that goes along with nosotros. And I've got in parentheses because people will not bother with the word nosotros. They won't bother to say nosotros. They'll just say somos. Somos. Somos, we are. Somos estudiantes. We are students. Somos de Estados Unidos. We're from the United States. Somos. Okay. Somos. In Spain, what will match up with vosotros is sois. We're not going to practice it a lot because they only use that in Spain and nowhere else. Sois, sois, sois. But somos, the we are, you will use a lot. So we're going to skip through vosotros. And notice people don't say yo, they don't say nosotros, they don't say tú, they don't bother with those. They just say the verb. Okay. And now we're coming down into the end here. The third person, but plural, more than one human being. Son. Son. They are, or you guys are. Son. Son. And notice, here comes back a little concept. Roger asked about what happens to cuesta? How come it's cuestan? Whenever you hear a n sound at the end of a verb, it's the they form. Always, in every single tense. Always. Kind of handy to know. So anytime you hear a n at the end of a verb, it means they are doing it. Okay. Ellos son, ellas son, ustedes son. You're talking about more than one person. Okay. Soy, eres, es, and now plural, somos, and son. Okay. Bien, are we good so far? Okay. Where you see parentheses, that means they're going to skip the pronoun most of the time because they can. Because that verb can only correspond to one human being. So why would I bother to name that human being? Everybody knows who that is. Just from the verb itself, you know who it is. Okay. Bien. And I will send you all this info, so don't write it down furiously because you don't need to. I'm going to send you the whole file. Ser is used for all these reasons. Oh, that's kind of complicated, but just know that ser is used to identify who somebody is or talk about what they usually look like or what they usually act like, where they're from. It's also used for things like time. Also used to talk about relationships, but again, in relationships, you know, he is my husband, es mi esposo. That just identifies who that person is, right? Instead of plugging a name in, I might say he is my husband. It's a relation. It still identifies. So ser tells you the essence of who that person is or what that thing is. The essence of what makes it what it is, what makes him what he is. Okay, bien, vamos. Let's take a look at some examples. And, ooh, I'm going to take this out of the equation. That's estar. Okay. Ella es paciente. She's they're in a doctor's office. Ella es paciente. She's a patient. Ella es paciente. People might drop the word ella if you've got the visual and you're pointing rudely or not. They might just say es paciente. She's a patient. Ella es doctora. Ella es médica. I'm identifying who she is. Es médica. Es doctora. 2 words for doctor. I'm telling what she does. I'm identifying her. I could give her name. Ella es doctora Méndez. I could. That also identifies her, but you know. I could say es morena. She's a brunette. I could. All those are reasons for using es. Okay. But I want to give you just the contrast. That other verb that means to be can talk about location. It can talk about location. Ooh, and I've got. So I could say la médica está contenta. Or it could talk about how she feels. Está contenta. She's a happy person. She feels happy. She feels happy right now. Oh, la paciente está enferma. I could talk about her health, which is changeable. Health is changeable. Feelings are changeable. So I could say la paciente está enferma, but you know, that's just a preview. Okay, let's talk about these guys. Ah, ellos son presidentes. They are presidents. I'm identifying who these people are. We're showing you how we're using ser. Ellos son presidentes. I might say están en los libros de historia. They're in history books, a location. But, you know, if I'm on the most basic level, say, ¿quiénes son? Who are these guys? Oh, ellos son presidentes. Ellos son presidentes. They are presidents. Bien, okay. Bien, soy maestra. I'm a teacher. I might say I'm located in Arizona, but if I identify, we're looking at all the yellow stuff today, right? Soy maestra. I'm a teacher. I'm identifying what I do, okay? If I want to take the plural of yo and make it a we, I might say mi clase y yo. Mi clase y yo. My class and I. And now it becomes a we verb. Mi clase y yo somos amigos. We are friends. We're usually in a friendly basis. Mi clase y yo somos amigos. We are friends. I'm identifying our relationship to each other. Yeah? But I need to use somos because I'm talking about not just yo, but mi clase y yo. I'm adding other people into yo. Okay, so I need to use somos to talk about all of us together. Does that make sense? ¿Sí? ¿Claro? Okay. Un ejemplo más. One more example. We're gonna look at the yellow only. Ed Sheeran es inglés. He's an English guy. Where he's from. So I have to use es. Where he's from is never going to change. You know, he was born there, can't change that. Where he is next month may be different, where he's located, but where he's from originally can never change, right? It's part of who he is. Ed Sheeran es inglés. He's an English guy. He's an Englishman. Beyonce y Jay-Z son estadounidenses. They are US citizens. They're from the US. That's never going to change where they're from. Beyonce y Jay-Z son estadounidenses. They are US people, US citizens. That makes sense? See? Okay. Vale. Aquí. Amarillo. We're only looking at the yellow part. Usted. And I need to move this because that's like way in the way. You can't see the people. Ustedes son de Estados Unidos. You guys are from the United States. Ustedes son de Estados Unidos. You guys are from the US. De means from. Ustedes son de, you're from. Son de Estados Unidos. I want to talk about these guys at a soccer game. Los hombres, the men. Los hombres son de Mexico. Los hombres son de. They are from. You guys are from. Ustedes son de. But the men, more than one of them, los hombres son de Mexico. Bien? Make sense? The uses of ser are uses of ser. And if I talk to somebody and I say, hey, are you an accountant? ¿Eres tú contadora? Are you an accountant? Do you do that for a living? We're looking at only yellow. This would be the contrast. The stuff in blue is all the different verb estar. Okay? Vale, bueno, okay. I am going to show you that. Also, I'm going to send you this file. I'm going to see if you can match up the right form of ser with these human beings, if I talk about these human beings, this will be a fill in the blank. Just can you plug in the right form of ser in these sentences that talk about human beings? When you see a vosotros example, skip it. I think there might be two. So skip the vosotros. Número 7, number 7. Skip the vosotros, okay? But see if you can plug that in. We'll come back and see the answers for that next week. I'll send you this file. So you're only going to plug in what's the form of ser. Did you have any questions about this video you watched last week on uses of ser? Okay. She talked about using ser for talking about professions. And she was heavy on the yo and the nosotros. She talked about using ser for nationality, where somebody is from. Do you want me to send you the link to that video again?
Yes, please.
I will send that in the email because it will have a little more meaning the second time through. Okay, so I want you to focus on that. So this weekend, I want you to focus on giving me a speaking practice. I'll give you the link with the higher numbers. Well, giving the math problem answers. Take a look at that verb ser. You're going to fill out the form, just to fill in the blank, what form of ser is correct. You're going to focus a lot on those higher numbers. You're going to focus on ser. You may want to look at chapter 4 in your book, although chapter 4 gets into some more verbs that are not ser. So maybe look at it to just build vocabulary, because this chapter 4, capítulo 4, the vocabulary part of it builds heavily on things in a house. So the first couple pages build heavily on like rooms in a house or things that are in rooms of our houses, okay? And I would say don't focus too much on the verbs that are in chapter 4, but just vocabulary building for things around the house, household items, okay? Because we can use ser with household items, we can. And that will probably be enough. So if you're super, super gung-ho ambitious and you want to look at some of the other verbs in chapter 4, go ahead and feel free to do that. But if it's too big a chunk to bite off, then don't worry about it. We'll get to it eventually. Bien? ¿Está bien? Is that enough to work on, you think, for 1 week? Sí?
Sí.
Sí.
Magnifico. I will give you an extra video that works on the hundreds. I will resend you this video on ser. And I would like you to practice some of those higher numbers speaking so I can actually hear you and give you some feedback on that. ¿Todo está bien? All good?
Sí.
Sí.
Magnifico. Okay. And we'll keep working those numbers poco a poco. We'll do some little higher numbers next week. Okay. Magnifico. Entonces, nos vemos el martes. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. ¿Sí? ¿Bien?
Bien.
Yeah.
Fantástico. Muy bien, very well, very well. If you wind up with questions middle of the week, go ahead, shoot out a quick email. ¿Todo está bien? Ok, entonces, nos vemos. Fantástico. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Bueno.
Hasta luego.